Hey, Groton Bible Chapel. Zach here, Associate Pastor. Today I'm excited to be joined by Simon with Northeast Christian Apologetics. And apologetics being the defense of the faith. And excited just to have a conversation today really about Scripture. Simon, would you just tell us briefly a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Simon Williams. As Pastor Zach mentioned, I'm the founder for Northeast Christian Apologetics. This is a Christian apologetics ministry geared towards apologetics and strengthening the Christian community with regard to their faith and knowledge of our Christian God.
Today, what we're specifically going to dive into, and this is a common question that pops up all the time, really has to do with the trustworthiness or the reliability of the Bible. And that question is, hasn't the Bible been corrupted over the thousands and thousands of years in which it was being translated and transmitted and all these sorts of things? People come, can I really trust that what the Bible I have is actually what was written a long time ago? And so, Simon, how do you usually start when people ask you something like that?
The way that I usually go about addressing this conversation or this topic is by trying to understand what they mean by corrupted. Like, what do you think corruption means? And a lot of people have a very strong opinion on what the word corruption means, and it's actually too strong. It's unnecessarily strong. When I was a kid, I remember growing up and going to Sunday school and also youth group and being shown videos in which the narrator of the video would explain how the Bible was transmitted over the centuries. And they would talk about how they were very carefully preserved to the point in which there were no mistakes, that they would be read again by other people and things of that nature. And that's actually not true.
Yeah.
So the Bible wasn't originally transmitted by professional scribes. These were people that were just like you and me, who because this was before the printing press or printers or computers or email and everything. So people, if they wanted a copy of the Bible, they would borrow a book of the New Testament and then they would write it out themselves. And some of these people who actually did the writing didn't even know the language in which they were writing. So
which were, by the way, what the languages of the Bible?
So the original language of the Bible is Koine Greek when you're talking about the New Testament. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about the Greek language, and the original Old Testament is obviously Hebrew.
Yeah, so with a little bit of Aramaic mixed in.
Yeah, with a little bit of Aramaic mixed in. So, and that's for the New Testament. But what we're saying right now is that the transmission of the Bible, even if it was done by professional scribes, there were going to be some differences in the manuscripts. And some people would think that if there are any differences, that counts as corruption, when that's actually not the case. So what are the kind of differences that you can see in the manuscripts? Well, there's a variety of different kinds of what they're called is textual variants.
Yes.
And this goes into textual criticism, and there's a whole field of study in which Bible scholars will actually take the original Koine Greek and they will match each manuscript to another manuscript and determine where there are actually textual variants. So this is a whole field of study.
Before you get into variants, real quick, how many manuscripts are we talking about
when we're
talking New Testament?
When we're talking about New Testament manuscripts, there's two main languages that they used in order to count the manuscripts, and that's the original Koine Greek, which we're looking at over 5,000 manuscripts. And then there's also the Latin translation of the Greek, which we have over 20,000 manuscripts. So that is a lot of data for us to comb through. And as far as ancient manuscripts goes, one very strong textual critic, his name is Dr. Dan Wallace, he likes to say that we're spoiled for riches. Because in contrast to the other most famous ancient manuscripts, like Homer's Odyssey and things of that nature, we're only looking at a few hundred. Why is it the case that we see so many variants? And the reason why we see so many variants is because we have so much material. We, as Christians, are spoiled as far as having ancient documents for us to comb through in order to get a better idea of what the original documents actually had in them.
I know one thing as I've looked at this over the years is when you say variants and you talk about the thousands and thousands of variants, considering how many manuscripts there are, how many probably millions and millions of words between all these manuscripts, is a lot of these variants are a word spelled differently, or a punctuation mark in a different place, or an S or the movable nu in Greek added in there, and so it doesn't change the meaning of the text.
Exactly,
but it's just little errors that were made kind of along the way, right?
Yep. There's a variety of different kinds of textual variants, like you said. Some of them are meaningful and not impactful. Some of them are not meaningful and not impactful. And an example of like the non-meaningful and not impactful variant is what you were mentioning, where they're misspelled words. So a textual critic is an expert in Koine Greek, so she will instantly be able to determine whether or not a word is misspelled. So it's not like we see these textual variants and we're like, oh no, what did Jesus really die on the cross? That's not what's going on.
And especially if a variant comes 500 years later and you have significant earlier manuscripts that all are united in the way that they've been transmitted and things like that. I do know, one of the hesitations of the cynics when they talk about the Bible and whether or not it's been corrupted is the people who've come into power over the years. And so, Roman emperors, you'll hear people falsely say Constantine was the one who decided the books of the Bible, and it was the people in power who chose what ended up. And so, what do you say to those people?
Well, they've been reading too much Dan Brown.
Okay.
So that really, that whole idea came about because of Dan Brown's book, the Da Vinci Code. And even atheistic or non-Christian New Testament scholars, when they hear about that, they just roll their eyes and they can't believe the ignorance of some people with regard to this topic. Emperor Constantine had nothing to do with deciding which books of the Bible were actually placed in the New Testament. The Council of Nicaea was just about trying to hash out how does Jesus relate to God. And then after the council was completed, the only thing that Constantine did was pay for the commissioning of writing New Testament books. He didn't decide which books were put in. All he did was do the funding. So that is completely wrong.
We talked about textual variants. How many textual, I know it's a lot, and you mentioned impactful me. How many textual variants are we talking?
We're talking about tens of thousands. Some people calculate up to hundreds, over 100,000 textual variants. And the vast majority of those are not meaningful variants, or they're not impactful variants. So we did talk about the number of manuscripts that we have, and that plays a huge factor into how many textual variants there are. There are some people who misunderstand how the textual variants are counted. If we have a group of 10 manuscripts, and we're going to use one manuscript as like the one in which all the other manuscripts are compared to. If those other 9 manuscripts have the same variant, some people will think that counts as multiple variants.
I see.
That would be 9 variants. That's not right. So even in the case where 9 other manuscripts have the same variant, that's still counted as just one variant.
Okay.
So these variants, even if they are multiplied among a lot of different manuscripts, are still counted as one. So some people see that, and that makes them nervous because they're like, man, that means that there's even more textual variants than I originally thought.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't scare you at all, because it's not important if there is a variant. What we're trying to do is determine what the original text said, and if it's a variant that's like a misspelling, that has no impact on whatever is actually being said by the manuscript, what is being said by the New Testament, what's being said by Scripture.
So one of the things that comes to mind, kind of an example in the way that variants almost help us know what the original manuscript was, is you take the sentence, "the dog is in the house." And let's say one variant is "the doge is in the house." And then another one is "the dog is in the hose." And then another one is "the dog is in the house" with no E on that word. And you look at all of these variants, and very, very quickly, by where they have similar things, you can tell what the original was.
Exactly, yep. So what textual critics do in order to determine what the original scripture said was seeing where they're similar, and even more importantly, see where they differ. And when you see that the differences are just among a certain number of manuscripts, maybe a different region that the manuscripts were copied out of, like Alexandria or the Byzantine Empire or Antioch. These were the major areas in which the manuscripts were written up. You'll find that certain variants are in certain areas that they're located in, and you can determine which manuscripts are better quality based off of how they differ from different regions and stuff. So the differences actually help us to determine what the original document actually said.
Absolutely.
Because if, let's say, Alexandria has a particular variant that they kind of favor, but Antioch and Byzantine agree on a different variant, then that would mean that that's probably more accurate. So we can actually, even if we have a lot of variants of the same thing, we can actually determine what the truth is because we have more witnesses over here.